Welcome. You are listening to the Be a Better Being podcast hosted by Michelle Zellner and Sasha Berscheid. Michelle and Sasha are here to give you information and inspiration to help you live your healthiest, happiest lives. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Greetings. Thank you for tuning into the Be a Better Being podcast. I'm Michelle Zellner, your host. And I don't know how often this is going to happen, probably not very, but I am joined today by two Sashas. We have my dear Sasha B. How are you, darling?
I am so excited to be here. You are in a Sasha sandwich.
Yes, I'm super excited as well. We have Sasha Tozzi, who we're going to call Sasha T, on the show as well. Sasha T, welcome to the Be a Better Being podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, you guys.
Well, we are excited about this conversation. So listeners, if you have listened to us for even a second, you know that the topic of alcohol and sobriety is a pretty important one, specifically for Sasha B, but for me as well. And as this is now Alcohol Awareness Month, we thought we got to have a dynamo in this space to come on and share her story with us. So Sasha B, I'm going to let you just do a little background before Sasha T gives us her full intro.
Yeah, so I can't remember how this all started. It was 100% the universe. I think I found Sasha T probably a year or two into my own recovery. And I found her on Instagram by probably using the hashtag sobriety and all those things. And then naturally, I followed her because her name was Sasha. And the things that she started to post were just incredible. It was like, it would perfectly worded that came out of my own head, but it was out of another Sasha. And then I started to reach out to her. Maybe she noticed that I was liking, commenting a lot, like fangirl a lot. And then she let me know that her middle name was also Patricia. So you have two Sasha Patricias on today. I don't know if I've ever met another Sasha Patricia before in my life who is sober 12 years. Is that right?
11 going on 12.
11 years going on 12. That is insane to me. Yes, and it's beautiful. And so I followed you for a very long time. I am a huge fan of yours, huge fan of your work, huge fan of your brain and the way it processes things. And when Michelle and I were going through who could we potentially have for, alcohol awareness, I was like, hands down, 100%, know who I'm picking, know who I want to highlight. And today, Sasha, I want to make this all about you, and I want to get your story out there so that everyone can just be in awe the way I am in awe of you.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know how to respond to that. That was so sweet,
No worries.
Sash.
No worries.
Sash,
Yeah.
thank you.
I love you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. I love you. I love you. She almost came to Lit Fest the first year. Some things fell through, but I want to really get into this. I could talk about how much I admire you for probably the next 45 minutes. I don't think our listeners need to hear that part of it. But if you don't mind sharing with us, all of it. I want to hear all the nasty, what you were doing before, what were you getting yourself into? What were the parties like? What were you using? And how did you find hope?
So from the start, yeah. Just right from the start. Okay. So yes, in September, it'll be 12 years. I will be sober continuously from alcohol and drugs, and alcohol being a drug. It's just all drugs, right? All illicit drugs. And I will say, let's see, when I was in, I think I started I drank for the first time when I was 14, and it wasn't like, I wasn't particularly with a fast crowd or a problematic child or anything, or teenager. I just kind of went to a party, and I was a freshman in high school, and I was at an upperclassman party. I have 3 older siblings. So I did kind of get exposed to things a little bit earlier, and I was very little in stature, and I hadn't gone through puberty. I was a late bloomer, so I was like less than 100 pounds just because I was short and petite, and I blacked out the first time I drank, and I had to be carried upstairs by like a football player, put to, laid down in the bed. Nothing inappropriate happened that night. So, people's minds might be going, carried upstairs by a football player. Nothing inappropriate. He actually was very nice and kind of took care of me. But I remember after that party, like, I remember how much I felt freedom from drinking. Like, I had really pretty intense social anxiety, and just being around people, just being in a social situation, like, filled me with so much fear that when I learned that drinking could, like, mitigate that fear and alleviate, like, the intense anxiety that I would feel around other people so badly that, like, I wouldn't be able to talk, and I would have to leave or, like, run away to the bathroom, and it just cured that for me. So I was like, okay, like, this is good. I'm just going to do this every time. Like, of course, like, this is a great, like, what, how did I just find this? I wish I found this in like elementary school. Okay. That's weird. But so that it was just kind of like a lock and key. Like, I was, it was the, it felt like the solution for me, and things escalated pretty quickly. Like, I was a very great student, kind of a perfectionist, but in that vein, like an extremist. So, an all or nothing. So, like, if I was drinking, it was, I was binging, or I wasn't drinking at all. Like, everything I did 100% or not at all. And that included, that applied to partying, right? And to, like, my academics and my personal life. Like, everything was, I was really good at it or was horrible at it, or like it was just so extreme. And I went off to college, and no, I think I was 17, and I like did coke for the first time, and I really liked that. And I kind of just like, I had some, so I mentioned social anxiety, but I also had like a pretty long history with depression, like, especially for as far as childhood, like, pretty severe depression for what you would see in teenage years. Like, I just struggled, like, intensely, and I think first diagnosed with depression when I was 14. So I say that to say, like, there were multiple things going on that I was, like, aware of. Like, it's not like I was trying to self-medicate something that I didn't know was present for me. Like, I was very much aware of some of my issues, and started seeing a therapist. I asked my mom if I could go to a therapist when I was 14, because I was like, I can't. I'm having such a hard time, like, adjusting to high school. Like, I had already had like a nervous breakdown. Everything just felt like a lot for me, like, to handle. Things were just overwhelming all the time, and I kind of used a lot of different things to cope, and one of them was alcohol. It really gave me like a vacation from my brain. If anyone's familiar with like anxiety, depression, like, those thoughts are can be really exhausting. So finding something that kind of like takes away those thoughts, like, although alcohol is a depressant, the euphoria that I felt right after drinking, like, I was just in it for that instant gratification and that vacation from my brain, where, like, I felt hope, and I felt excited, and I felt no insecurity, and I felt really, like, confident and invincible, and just all the things that I wanted to feel sober, but I didn't know how to get there and couldn't get there. I didn't think that it was possible for me. So, I mean, it just became a vicious cycle and something that I really started to depend on and rely on. When I was like 20 years old, I think I was working at a restaurant. I had dropped out of college because I got really into Coke. And I was like, I decided to go live at the beach and work in the restaurant industry and like live that life and maybe go back to college when I felt like it. And then when the people that I was working with at the restaurant called my family, I was partying with everyone I worked with, but somehow I was the worst. And they called my family and told them that I was in trouble and put me on probation with my job. And then my family did this like informal intervention. And that's when I quit using Coke, but I didn't stop drinking. I tried, but I was like, I'm 20 years old. I'm way too young. Like, this isn't fair. Like, so many people are doing what I'm doing and they're not alcoholics. So like, I just couldn't grasp it. I didn't, from what my definition of what an alcoholic was. And I use that term in shorthand. I don't love the label, but I also can see its value. Definition of what an alcoholic was not what I looked like. Like, I just thought an alcoholic was someone that drank every single day, needed to drink or they shake. And I just was very naive and very sheltered. I mean, again, I was only 20 years old and like I couldn't even legally drink, but I was like sneaking into bars drunk already and putting vodka in my purse so I could keep drinking while I was at the bar. I was getting kicked out of the bars, blacklisted from the bars. There was only like 2 bars in town. I got blacklisted from both of them. And it was just starting to be kind of exhausting. Even though I hadn't gone out, it hadn't gone on for that long. Like, and so at 20, I quit doing Coke. I kind of got people off my back because like I was under a microscope then. I wanted to get my job back. And then I just like slowly went back to my old ways kind of. And I never had to drink every day. So like it was easy for other people to also not really think that I had a problem. But then some people were like, you have a problem, you need help. And then some people were like, unless they were out drinking with me, they couldn't see it, right? Like I didn't fit the profile. And again, I just think the awareness around alcohol abuse and what it looks like and who it affects. I'm 37, so this was 17 years ago. So we've come a long way. 17 years ago, it was even less, people weren't recovering out loud. Like there wasn't the movement that there is now around sobriety and recovery and the many different nuances involved and just all the different ways that you can recover. It's really quite incredible what people that get sober now, what they have access to and the resources.
Sasha, I have a quick question for you if I can. Just curious, at 14, obviously you're living under mom and dad's roof and you have older siblings. Are they noticing anything, or was this just you were so good at putting on the mask and being sober in front of them, or did they notice your schoolwork drop off? You weren't getting up in the morning? Like, were there any signs, not to blame, like, oh, they should have done something, but I'm just curious because I think a lot of parents are very blinded, right? They're not going to see things that maybe they don't want to see or they would never imagine seeing because our daughter who does so good in school, she wouldn't do that. So did they notice, were there any of those, minor interventions prior to when your coworkers called your family when you were 20?
There were some incidents when I was like, or in my early 20s. So I didn't end up getting sober till I was 26. So in my early 20s, like between 20 and 25, or let's say 20 and 26, there were incidents that happened, but from 14 to 20, I, I was pretty good at flying under the radar. And my parents were really busy. I had 5 siblings. So they were like distracted by, it was easy for me to kind of, it was kind of like the squeakiest wheel got the oil. And as long as I wasn't like, and some of my siblings were more getting in more trouble than I was getting. So like I looked really, I was able to kind of just slide by. And they also didn't know what I was doing. Like when I would go out with my friends, or like the first time I drank, they didn't know. Like they didn't know, and they didn't know to look for it the next day or anything. And like I said, there was I mean, so without getting too deep into like trauma and family dysfunction, there was a lot of that in my household. So like there was so many other things going on that like my like drinking too much at a party was like a blip on the radar of the context of everything.
And what blows my mind is like this is 17, 18, 19 years ago, right? And this is without texting. This is without social media. I was just having a conversation with my coworker how scared I am for this next generation, because I know what I did, right? Sasha, I was 14, 15 when I first started drinking. I was 26 when I got sober as well. So, you know, I only had that 11 to 12 years of going out and drinking and stuff like that. But I'm seeing these kids, 12 years old, have Snapchat sending nudes. You're 12. You're 12. You're 12. Parents, get involved. Get involved with your kids. If they're drinking, you gotta know that their little brains, our little brains, were not ready. They were not ready to do the things that they did. And it's okay to get involved. It's okay to look at that stuff. And even if, you know, you weren't the squeakiest wheel, parents, we need to wake up. We need to get off of that autopilot of just focusing on the squeaky, because I don't blame my parents one bit. It was 100% my fault. But at the same time, like, what is going on? Why are there 14-year-old little girls drinking? Like, why in the world, why were we doing that? It just blows my mind that your story is so similar to mine. 14 years old. I blacked out the very first time I drank too. That shouldn't have been the way I was introduced to drinking.
I mean, I agree with you, but I think, and I think that it's so, I think that there's so many nuances here, because like it is our responsibility, and I think there's circumstances, and we live in we're social beings, right? And we're affected by people around us, and we're affected by our environments. And I think that lots of things are going on, and like they all contribute, right? So like it was not my parents' fault. There's so many things that play into why I decided to do that, and some of my siblings didn't, right? But had I had like a safe space at home where I could like where parents where our parents were like trained on how to hold emotions, and like we had there was the awareness that there is today, and this like huge wave of people waking up and getting conscious and like learning emotional intelligence. Had that been the case, who knows, like I might not have been a choice that looked appealing to me. Right? So like there's no telling, and I have no regrets, and I also don't blame I've had many conversations with my parents about this as part of my healing, like, and just the different things that go into, like, all the factors, nature and nurture, right? And I know that I'm prone. Like, I'm prone because I'm sensitive, and my system is sensitive, so like I legitimately feel like I do have an allergy to alcohol. And but I'm also sensitive to like everything. And I think that addiction draws a lot of sensitive people that feel like kind of like they need a buffer between them and life.
100%. I agree. I am all about that lubricant.
Yeah.
I love that lubricant. It feels so good. Once you get one drink in, it's like, whew, where has this been? Where has this been all my life? Oh, praise be. Here she is. She is confident. She has it all. But, you know, I didn't have breaks. I didn't know how to stop. Once I was on board, I was on board. And it wasn't like 4 drinks. It was until I blacked out. And it went that way until I got sober. Were you the same way? Were you drinking until you got blacked out? Or
Yeah.
you know,
Every time was a blackout. Like maybe 1 out of 1,000 I didn't black out. I don't know. That must have been just the random off time. But
right. And how proud were you of that one time?
how what?
I was so proud. I was like, I did not black out last night.
Proud. Like I can't even recall a time where I had like 1 drink. Like I don't even remember that being like something that I thought was a thing to do.
No, me either. I don't understand how people can just have 1 glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine. I'm like, okay, if we're going to do wine, I need 2 bottles for myself, and then you can be responsible for what you want. But that's how it was. I was very extremist, just like you. When you got sober, what did that look like?
So I did go back to school, and like in my early 20s, I decided to go back and finish my undergrad degree. And I was seeing a therapist in the school, like as part of the, you know, like a school therapist as part of the school, right? And I had just came back from my last summer of working and living at the beach and partying, and I was telling her all about it. And I was in so much shame. Like I was like, this is what I did, and this is what I did, and I don't even know what I did because I can't remember it, but this is what I was told that I did, and I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, why I can't just, just all the shame. And she just handed me an AA when and where pamphlet. And like, so that was my introduction into sobriety. Like, I had gone to AA meetings when I was 20, but they didn't stick then. But then at 26, and I loved this therapist. She was so gentle and kind. She spoke in metaphor, and she was very like non-confrontational. Like, she just got in. She just got into my heart, and like I didn't feel threatened by the way that she recommended AA meetings. She was just like, here's a pamphlet, kind of like, do what you want with that pamphlet. Either you can go, you cannot go. Like, and I looked up a meeting and I started going, and it was the Friday night meeting, and like it was on my campus, and it was actually in a room I had a class in, and it was a speaker meeting, so I knew I wouldn't have to talk. I could just listen. And to be honest with you guys, like I was a psychology major. Like I loved human behavior and hearing people's stories and why you do what you do, and like that whole self-reflection piece. I was just like eating it up. I was like, it felt like going to a psych class. I just went every Friday night at 8 p.m. and listened to a speaker. And the after meeting, like socializing kind of was a lot for me to take in, but I just kept going to that one meeting. And over time, it evolved into other things. Like I started using a lot of alternative like healing, and I got really, really into yoga, which became my like just my church, my community, my just it was so great. The spirit, the mind, body, spirit aspect of hot yoga for me was it it got me to sign up for teacher training, and then kind of just one step after the other, my path, I just kept following my path. What was next after I did one thing? It was what's opening up in my awareness now, and kind of just following my the clues and following my intuition with what I needed next. And just I think I went home after I graduated that first year. And so I moved back home. I was 10 months sober, and I got hooked up with some people from my hometown that had gotten sober, and I got hooked up with a sponsor, and she's still in my life. My sponsor, she was such an angel. Yeah, I mean, after that, I mean, it's been, almost 12 years. So a lot has happened in the last 12 years. But I don't know what you want to know next.
I'm just curious, Sasha, if, you went to that first meeting, that AA meeting, was that that's the start of your sobriety, or when did you say, okay,
No,
I'm ready?
So I didn't plan on staying. I wasn't when I started going, I was just I'm just going to try this. I'm not going to commit. I can't commit half foot. I mean, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I was just, I was actually used to. So when I drank all of it. And when I didn't drink, I didn't drink. And a lot of times when I was at school, because I wanted to get straight A's and stuff, and I couldn't do both, be a raging drunk and get straight A's. I just couldn't do that. Some people can, and so I picked, when I'm at school, I'm going to be the studious academic student, and I'm going to be on a detox, and I would be doing the healthy thing. And I told my friends, I'm just taking a break from drinking because I'm doing a fast and other things that have to do with, ended up being some eating disorder behaviors. But at the time, it was kind of the lesser of evils and harm reduction. And I was just not drinking. And after I never thought about, oh, this is what I'm doing. It was kind of just this is what I'm doing right now. I'm not, and they tell you one day at a time, but I really was just I just want to try this and see what happens. And I don't even know my real date because I wasn't planning on staying. So I wasn't trying to track the first time I went. So I picked a date that was technically probably after I started going. So September 2nd, 2011 is my date, but technically it was probably end of August of that year. But I didn't pay attention because I wasn't planning on being sober for life. I thought that I was gonna, learn how to manage it and be able to go back to normal moderation, how regular people drink. That's what I thought might happen.
Yeah, you and I are cut from the same cloth. 100%. Also studied psychology. That's what I got my undergrad in. When people come to you and they say, I need help, I want what you have, what are your suggestions? What are your steps? For me, I don't go to AA anymore. I celebrate recovery. I just know that where I am is where I am, that I breathe in and I breathe out, and I cannot drink in between.
Mm-hmm.
That is how I do my recovery. There is no alcohol. I am allergic. I'm a raging alcoholic. Do not. However, if a person comes to me, I will say, here are the things that I personally suggest to help you get in alignment with yourself, with your true intuition, your divine inner self. What are the steps that you suggest when people come to you?
Well, that's a good question. So I really do believe that everyone finds their own path with it. And it's kind of just So when I first started coaching, I was working mainly with people that were wanting to get sober or or they were sober, they had gotten sober and they were like stuck on some other stuff and wanted to learn how to be, live, be happier sober and like live better sober. And so I would work with them individually to find their own path. And a lot of sobriety, no matter what avenue you take to get there, and there's just so many, a lot of sobriety is just like learning how to be human, right? What you said, like, this is where I am and I don't drink in between. And it's like being in the present, right? And that quote that you've probably seen me share that I love, the Johann Hari quote, the opposite of addiction is connection. I think that there's so much the underneath. So drinking to me, or really any addiction, is just a symptom of the problem. So like the underlying stuff of feeling unworthy or anxiety or just really not having any coping skills to deal with stuff that comes with being human because we didn't learn those coping skills, is really just teaching basic life skills, how to like feel your feelings, how to like even identify what your feelings are. So as far as like a list of, gosh, it's I mean, to simplify it so much, the mind body spirit approach of like just, and this is in most treatment modalities, is just to look at what will help their mind, their body, and their spirit. So if that's like their mind, what is going to, like, what they might need, if it's meditation, if that helps them calm down and like quell their anxiety, quell racing thoughts. Body, like if exercise is going to help and what type of exercise, and kind of getting them on a plan, like a program. So even if you're not using a 12-step program, what kind of program can we get you on from where you are? And I always, if people are DMing me or I'm just talking to someone like that I come across in my life, or if it's a client, I need to meet them where they're at and just take them further. Like I meet them and then we go further together, and that's going to look different. But the basics are the mind, body, spirit, and like spirit is a huge part because spirituality is like what a lot of us have disconnected from. And I think the mind and the body tend to be like the things that people, I'll get my mind and body right, but I won't work on spirit, or like I don't believe in God, or like whatever the thing is. But some form of connection to, it doesn't have to be God, higher power, nature, universe, like some form of connection that helps you realize that like there is something else at play, that like you don't have to be in charge of everything, I think is really, really important. Because most people in addiction recovery are like, I don't want to say this in a bad way, but like can be kind of control freaks. So like it's they need to learn how to like surrender, right? And like let go of things. And that involves some kind of spiritual connection. So yeah.
I love that. I would love to have you come back on and talk about spirituality with me sometime, and with Michelle sometime. It's something that I'm very passionate about. And one thing that I wanted to go back and highlight, because it is so important. You do post it a lot. Every time you post it, I always repost it. Again, huge fan, fangirl, whatever they're called, is you're saying the opposite of, go ahead and say it.
The opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection.
Yeah, it's community. And I think that that's so important that we all realize that. I know that there was a study done. There were 2 rats. They gave one of the rats like cocaine or some crazy drug, and they fed it through their little water dropper. And they gave these rats these drugs, and the rats would go and they were like sick. They were hyped up on the drugs. And then the next thing you know, they put the water droplet in with a whole bunch of other mice. And the mice that were addicted stopped going to the water droplet because now they had community.
Mm-hmm.
And so they, through this evaluation, through this, I'll have to find it, and we'll have to ask Michelle to post it on our social media. But basically, you know, it is so true. You could be so addicted to something, but it is taking you away from your element of being a human. And one of those things that we must have as humans is community. So like it or not, we have to be doing life with one another.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah, and I just want to just kind of springboard off of that. It goes to the things that Sasha and I talk about all the time. You need to give a human specimen what it requires, right? And we are pack animals. We're designed to be part of a pack. So if there is an element missing, well, I'm going to try to fill that void. Maybe I fill it with food or with drugs or with alcohol or with excessive retail therapy. I try to fill it somehow, right? Because there's something missing. And then Sasha T, to your point earlier about the root, right? The addiction is an expression of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody just like the first time is living a great life and then is an addict. That I have never seen that happen ever. And I know a lot of current and recovered addicts. And sometimes we don't know what the root issue is. So I think a big piece of it, and I'm guessing you coach people with this, is you got to go back and heal whatever trauma, damage, whatever forgiveness needs to happen. Maybe we don't even know what it is. And that is a yucky part of the process that most people don't want to do,
Mm-hmm.
which is why maybe, you know, and again, not having the skills and the tools, the coping skills. And it's just so much easier to find things that are not only socially acceptable, but that are glorified, that are celebrated, right? You're the cool kid because you're drinking. You're the weirdo because you're not drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just a big shift in our culture that I see is happening, that people like you speaking up. And I love how you said earlier, recovering out loud, because the more we talk about sobriety is sexy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you're not the cool kid because you're drinking, and you're not the weirdo because you're not. We're all just doing our thing. And I think that's just another message that hopefully, as we continue evolving in our own emotional intelligence as a species on this planet, that we recognize that there are some people who can enjoy a glass or two, or who can go out and party like rock stars, and they will not pass out and, you know, not have like a real issue with alcohol. Not that it's great that they go party like rock stars. It's still not good for you. It's still poison.
Mm-hmm.
But there are different degrees of how much things are going to impact somebody. And I would say for somebody listening, if you know that mental health issues are an issue for you, I guarantee you alcohol is not going to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe we speak up like Sasha T did when she was 14 and ask her mom if she could go to a therapist. I mean, what 14-year-old says, "Mom, can I go to a therapist?" I wish more said it, right? Said it's often the parent wanting and the kid not wanting, right? So before we officially wrap up here, you know, I know you've given some tips and things, but in your own journey with this, what are the benefits of being sober? Let's talk about that.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I think that I'm actually being more of who I really am. I mean, and that's a huge benefit to me, because there was so many times where the reason why it hurt so much the next day, the hangover, the shame over, was because like I knew I wasn't living in accordance to my values and up to my potential. So in sobriety, I have the opportunity to do that. Like, and that feels amazing to be able to, like, if I value this, I actually, I align with it, and I don't have this. It's just that I get to be more true to myself. And like, I think that that's such a lost art of just living in the world today and being influenced by media and other people and society. It's like just getting to hear my own intuition and my like inner self and my connection to God is by far the biggest benefit. And alcohol just like cut that off. It just cut off that connection and siphoned it. And so I made a lot of choices that like weren't really me. And on top of that, being able to be present, I'm going to my sister's bachelorette this week. It's my little sister, and I planned it, and I'm her maid of honor, and it's 15 girls in Miami, and they're going to be drinking. I'm not. Like, I can still be there for her and be present and be kind of like just present. And like, if I was drinking, I'd be ruining her bachelorette. And she would hate me and be like, don't come to the wedding. And so just being able to like be someone that people depend on and rely on. I'm not perfect sober. Like, I drop the ball. I disappoint people still, but far less. And like just being able to reach goals. Like, I didn't have any follow through before. I just gave up on everything. I just gave up. And so like, and when I feel joy, it's real joy. It's not manufactured by, a high, euphoric 3 shots in and I feel on top of the world. It's not like that. It's real. So just like really, I'll have to just emphasize the sense of like authenticity in my life is like, I know that it's real. It's not what I'm doing for show and like going out because friends asked me to and I didn't want to. And then I take a picture just because they're posting it and like just so what it looks like on social media now. It's like, no, all my decisions, like I mess up sometimes and I do things I don't want to do or fall back into people pleasing, but like 95% of my decisions are like really in alignment.
That's awesome. So I want to include, it's not a real like hardcore in the books quote because I've said it before, but I heard it this weekend when I was getting caught up on Vanderpump Rules thanks to Michelle's suggestion. And Lala Kent said, and I'm telling you, I've said this before. So Lala took my quote. That's what I'm going to say. Lala Kent took my quote and she said, the best gift I have ever given myself was sobriety. And I have to say that it is 7 billion, trillion, quintillion times true. The best gift that I ever gave myself was sobriety.
Ditto, Lala. So can I just, on that note of Vanderpump and like Real Housewives, I am so obsessed with the fact that even in Real Housewives franchise, like there have been a couple of sober housewives that or even like Gina, or not Gina, that girl, Jackie, who went to eating disorder treatment and the sober girl from the OC, Brooke, I think her name was Brooke, but just like these people on these reality shows that everybody's watching and someone gets sober or is sober like Lala and talks about it and is around people that are drinking but doesn't have to drink. Like, I think it's such an amazing thing that they don't make everybody be like party animals and they get to really show and be a voice. Like, I wish one of the Kardashians would get sober just so that, they could be a voice, like, because it really does influence people. And the young generations that are very impressionable that are watching these shows and just not thinking about what they're taking in, but their subconscious minds are being imprinted. So if they can see more people in the media that are sober, then they know it's a thing that you can do. Like, I didn't know one single person who was sober. Like, I thought I was going to be like a leper. Like when I was 20, I was like, there's no one I can like look to. Like, and now there's just so many people and I just wanted to keep growing.
I amen to that. And I bet you did not think we would talk about Bravo on this episode. So yay, Sasha, for bringing that back, because we haven't done our Why We Love Reality episode in a year. So I am really happy we were able to introduce Real Housewives and Vanderpump Rules into the conversation. Sasha T, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this story. I mean, we've had other people talk about their sobriety journeys, and obviously Sasha B has talked about hers, and everybody's is different, right? And everybody's version of being an alcoholic is different. I think it can be specifically defined, but I think for anybody, if you recognize that alcohol is preventing you from living your best life, then you have a problem with alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
It's really that simple. So we thank you so much for sharing. We will put all of your info in the show notes for people to contact you, to follow you on Instagram. Just really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you, Michelle Z. It was a pleasure. And Sasha B. And all your little moves when you're on silent just crack me up.
Yes, if for people who don't watch this on YouTube, I mean, when Sasha B is on, you definitely should. When it's just me, I'm boring, but you should watch when she's doing her little dances. All right, everybody. Well, that is an official wrap. Thank you again. And everybody listening, you know that you now get to go and be a better being.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Better Being podcast. Michelle and Sasha hope that what you heard today inspires you to embrace this journey of life with an open mind, a kind heart, and a willingness to learn and evolve. If you enjoyed the content, please help spread their message by subscribing, sharing, and leaving a 5-star review. If you have a show topic idea or would like to be a guest, please visit betterbeings.net and fill out a contact form. Until next time, go and be a better being.